Hi, Armand here with the Integral Astrology forecast for August 2018. It's a hot month in the skies. I don't care if you're in the southern hemisphere. It is astrologically summertime with the aspects that we have going on this month. Now, that doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean that it's difficult. It just means that things are intense, things are bubbling, things are hot. And how it hits your individual chart. This is not a solicitation for personal consultation, such as you would find on armanddiaz.com. But how it hits your individual chart will have a lot to do with whether you see this as challenge or opportunity, plus your disposition towards things. Some folks like things to be more stable and even keel. Others see that as doldrums. Some folks like there to be excitement and something happening. Others see that as anxiety provoking. So it has a lot to do with the way that you perceive change and excitement. Although I would guess that at this point in time, it would be more or less average to just kind of want a little bit of a break in the action. And we don't really get it, especially the first 11 days of August. The first 11 days of August continue the very, very high energy that started at the end of July with the lunar eclipse and the build up to it. And we get a big start right away on August 1st as Mars squares Uranus. This aspect is one that is extraordinarily likely to increase the sort of collective volatility. You might trip across somebody's sensitive spot and get them to react and maybe perhaps exhibit some anger with relative ease and perhaps sort of inappropriately some of the time. You'd be very careful driving. I think you should be very careful with anything that involves anything that has a potential bit of danger to it. You just want to watch out because there's this impulsive, erratic energy. And with Mars is retrograde all the way out till August 27th, there's a sort of inward, I got to do something, and it's hard to externalize. And when you tip that off, say, for example, by Mars squaring Uranus, you have a recipe for frustration, right? That's very frustrating when you want to do something and you can't. And then it's sort of like it contains and then psh. So, August 1st is a time of psh. If you've got something to say, if you've got something to do, that could be an opportunity. But free-floating energy tends to be a problem. When you have a strong aspect that really motivates and you don't really have anything to do, then you sort of find something to do, perhaps sort of arbitrarily. Keep in mind, too, that you don't want to necessarily burn bridges just to watch how bright the fire is. So, take a little bit of a measured approach to things right at the beginning of the month, if you can. The other thing about this August 1st aspect is that it harkens back to the middle of May when Mars squared Uranus when he was going forward before the retrograde. So if it hit your chart in a particular way and something big was happening right around the middle of May, you're liable to get the second installment of the story right at the beginning of August, although it'll probably take until maybe mid-September before you actually get the final result. So, don't take what happens as being the end result. It's just sort of like, part of the story. Well, now we also have to consider that this aspect on August 1st is especially hot because Uranus is stationing to retrograde on the 7th. And so it's really, how do we say, it is really powerful at this time as Uranus slows down to station, becomes more powerful. That erratic, independent, revolutionary, I gotta do things my way type of energy is very, very strong, hitting Mars, which is motivation and drive, but it's internalized. So again, the first week is really very, very intense, very, very erratic. Be very, very careful. And really, you got to extend that all the way out to the solar eclipse on August 11th, which is a time. Solar eclipses are an implosive kind of energy. It draws the energy inwards, but when you bring the energy too far inwards, it eventually has to come out in some way or another. Solar eclipses aren't typically all that exciting in the moment. They usually see changes that happen over the course of the next 9 to 18 months or so. But this one might be a bit of an exception, especially as Mercury is square to Jupiter, as he really is, as retrograde Mercury is square to Jupiter. So the end of the month may see us with a lot of technical snafus. Mercury stations to go direct on the 19th, but is going to be square to Jupiter essentially for the whole second half of the month. And so there's just a lot of intensity there. We're liable to have more than usual mercurial mishaps during the retrograde, end of the retrograde, and the time that he's going direct. Sometimes you think, wow, August 19th, Mercury went direct. Now it's August 20th. I'm going to go out and buy a car, sign a contract, and maybe get a new computer. It's not really a great idea. It's good to let Mercury get up to speed at least. But this month, I would say that the retrograde is probably going to continue. A retrograde feel is liable to continue all the way through the end of the month. And again, with Mars stationing to go direct on the 27th, all that martial stuff is going to be very powerful. So there could be a real sense of drive and motivation and intensity. There could be a lot of sexual energy. But all of this stuff that we feel so intensely internally has trouble externalizing. And that's, again, a bit of a recipe for frustration. It's better after the 11th or 12th or so. It's better. I'm not saying that it's going to be necessarily the easiest time, especially right around the end of the month, around the 27th or so. Things could be a little bit more rocky, but it's easier after the 11th. A Jupiter-Neptune trine on the 19th, the day that Mercury goes direct, it's the third in a series. It's a very creative aspect. It's a very flowing, to me it suggests, with the signs involved, a kind of goth spiritual type of thing. And given that Mercury is stationing direct at the same time, I would say that the 18th, 19th, 20th would be a wonderful time to get lost in fantasy, to do something that just sort of feels good, and it's just kind of, something that's invigorating to you, but it's probably not a great time for practical purposes. Play around with things, It's a great time for any sort of creative endeavor, but, enjoy the process, enjoy the improvisation, don't focus on the product. In terms of relationship, Venus is trine Mars on the 7th. That's the same day that that Uranus stations to go direct. Venus Mars trines usually suggest some kind of harmony and nice flow in relationship, but with Uranus stationing, it could be actually that this sort of motivates a little bit of a separation, getting a little bit of distance on a relationship. So that's not necessarily the case, but Venus goes on to oppose Chiron. Yes, Venus goes on to oppose Chiron. Hold on, wait. Yes, Venus goes on to oppose Chiron. So there could be a little bit of a feel of things not being quite so harmonious, and that's especially true again as Mars stations to go direct on the 27th, just a day before Venus is square to Pluto. And in this case, I think that relationship issues that have been simmering are liable to sort of blow up. Again, that sort of implosive energy of the Mars station combined with the Venus-Pluto square means that relationships that are in a volatile place could really... So, be cautious with that. Financial matters also. Financial stresses could be very strong right around the same time, right at the end of the month. And so it could feel like a time of divesting in a business partnership. It could be a time when you're inclined to let go of financial investments and so on. Again, just be sure that you're acting from, a more or less rational perspective as well as the emotions. Emotions aren't bad. They show you what's important, but sometimes they show you what's important out of proportion. All right. And then September is coming. So we'll take a look at that next month. In the meantime, enjoy your August. It's not bad. There's just a lot of stuff happening. We're just excited about stuff, and hopefully it's good excitement as opposed to, the other kind.